All right, and good evening, folks. Just wanted to update you on what we know, what we don't know, and what we're looking at in terms of Tropical Storm Ida. What we know right now is that, yes, it is a tropical storm, but it is a poorly organized tropical storm. We're talking about that center of circulation, fairly ill-defined, and even looking at satellite, kind of see this almost broad circulation here just to the west of Jamaica. Almost looks, as you, again, kind of watch it here, it looks to be something right about in through here near the Caymans. And then as you continue to watch it, you almost see kind of that drift of, okay, so let's say, just looking at satellite, this is about where the center should be, right? No, Hurricane Center is saying it's down there. Is it here? Is it there? Low-level circulation, based on the reports from the National Hurricane or the Hurricane Hunters, says it's down here. So maybe this is more of a mid-level circulation. What's possible is that we could see a new center try and form up here within more of these thunderstorms. And if that is the case, then that forecast track, you can throw it out, because now we'll have to have the computer models run from this as the center point. I'm not saying that will happen, just based on what we're looking at the moment. And again, if that is the case, then you kind of have to throw out the computer models and they'll have to be rerun on a new center, because right now all of the models are basing the center as the current location. That may not be the case. However, with that said, we have to make our decisions because we don't have a whole lot of time based on what we know right now. What we know right now is that it will be moving into the Gulf of Mexico late Friday, early Saturday. At the moment, it looks like it's a tropical storm. It could easily be a hurricane at that point, and then quickly strengthening. Saturday at 1 o'clock, a hurricane. Sunday at 1 o'clock, already moving inland as possibly, I know it says a 2, but very possibly as a stronger hurricane, a major hurricane, 3, maybe 4, as a lot of the computer models have been trending more on the higher side. Now, at the moment, Hurricane Center is kind of going a little bit more conservative, keeping it at a 2, but it could easily be a stronger storm at landfall. If there's any positive, as I mentioned, it will be moving into the Gulf by early Saturday. By midday Sunday, about 36 hours later, already moving inland. So really that development time for the storm is about 36 hours. Now, that is still plenty of time for a storm to rapidly intensify, but just know that that window is not just wide open for the intensification of the storm. Computer models at the moment, as I said, are in good agreement, but if you go back just 24 hours ago, the models were also in good agreement with Texas as the landfall. They did shift last night, and they have maintained that position all day today. One of the big things we look at as a meteorologist with forecast models is consistency in the models. Not that they all necessarily agree, but they are consistently saying the same thing. Well, they are all in agreement, and they've been consistent since yesterday. We will get new model runs with all of the evening runs before the 10 o'clock advisory comes out from the National Hurricane Center. It'll be interesting to see, do they stay with this kind of central southeast Louisiana landfall, or do they shift one way or the other? I'll be posting that. If you follow me on social media, I'll be posting that graphic before we get the new information at 10 p.m. But right now, again, we just have to make our decisions based on what we know. I also do like to point out the things that may throw a monkey wrench into the workings of this, because there is still that uncertainty, especially with where the storm is at the moment. And where the storm is at the moment is in a fairly not highly, but in a sheared environment. You can kind of see the motion of the clouds on water vapor, and it is helping to kind of drag those storms, ripping them apart and keeping that circulation more elongated. So where the storm is right now is not very hospitable for further strengthening and development. Once it gets into the Gulf of Mexico, however, that will change. This is a look at wind shear, and here's kind of that wind shear I was pointing out. As it moves into the Gulf, that wind shear kind of disappears. Yeah, there are some areas of shear, but doesn't look like it really interacts with the circulation of the storm. So the wind shear relaxes. It's also going to have a fairly decent outflow. In other words, the storm in the higher parts of the atmosphere will have room to grow and intensify. That, coupled with the fact that it is going to be moving over very warm and deep water. This is not looking at surface water temperatures. What we call it is the oceanic heat content. In other words, we're looking at not just at the surface of the ocean, but deeper, and how warm that water is. This is going to be moving over what we call the loop current, a very deep pocket of very warm water. it does have all the ingredients for rapid intensification. Models have been indicating that, and if that is the case, then the models have done a very good job, at least in the near future, or in the short-term forecast, I should say, of Ida. Because if you remember, it was a little all over the place, even just as of yesterday, and we were talking about the potential of moving over the Yucatan, either south or north, and Mexico or Texas. Well, it is not really the case. It has been shifted far to the east of where that initial forecast was. But the computers have certainly grabbed onto South Louisiana as the landfall, and they have really not changed since yesterday. One of the other keys to the forecast track is going to be this big ridge of high pressure. Right now, it's forecasted to kind of build inland a bit, which would help to push the storm toward Louisiana. But what if this high is more centered right along the coast or even farther offshore? The position of that high through the weekend will really determine where the storm eventually tracks. If it's more to the east, the storm could be farther east. If it's more inland, meaning to the west, the storm may track more toward the west, which is why I'm kind of keeping all of this area, even parts of coastal Texas, under the risk. It doesn't look like it at the moment. And again, we kind of find southeast Louisiana, unfortunately, right in the dead center of that. Winds will begin increasing. You're looking at the percentage probability of when those tropical storm force winds begin to arrive. And that may be late Saturday and certainly throughout the day on Sunday and continuing on into Monday. So the weather will start to deteriorate as we approach the second half of the weekend, late Saturday, early Sunday, which is why I said you don't have a whole lot of lead time with this. If you are going to do whatever you're going to do, stay at home and you need to have the supplies. You've got tomorrow, you've got Saturday. If you're going to leave, you've got tomorrow, you've got Saturday, because by Sunday, you need to be wherever you're going to be. Heavy rainfall is also going to be a threat. As long as the storm moves quickly, we're looking at maybe an estimate of 7 to 10. You can probably almost double that for some isolated locations. So some spots could approach 20 inches of rainfall. It's kind of a more general rule of thumb, and certainly not the case in all storms, but just to give a very rough estimate of the rainfall totals, we could be looking at some areas in excess of 15 to 20 inches of rain. I think those would be few and far between, just based on what we've been looking at. So potential impacts begin late on Saturday. Rapid intensification is possible. It is being forecasted by the computer models, but what's very interesting is usually computer models don't forecast. It tends to happen almost by surprise. All we can do is tell you that the ingredients are there, very similar to a tornado watch or a severe thunderstorm watch. The ingredients are there. It's yet to be seen if you actually see that. So the ingredients are there for rapid intensification. It does not necessarily mean it will happen. The environment over the Gulf, as well as the surface waters of the Gulf, are conducive for that happening. The forecast, though not written in stone, as I mentioned earlier, the chisel is out. Really, what I would say would start to write that forecast more in stone is that by tonight and certainly by tomorrow morning, if the computer models are still congregating around south central or southeast Louisiana, then it's probably fairly certain as that is where the storm is going to go. Still, again, a lot more uncertainty than knowns at the moment, but just because of the fact that we're looking at a landfall midday Sunday, so you have Friday and Saturday to make any kind of preparations. You don't have a whole lot of time, so you just have to make those decisions based on what we know right now. Could it still change? Yes. Will it change? I really don't know. And all options are on the table of the storm moving completely away from us, as well as the potential of it becoming a Category 5 storm. That is certainly a possibility. None of the models are indicating that right now, but certainly the possibility is there. Well, I've again mentioned a complete update on Ida coming up on Eyewitness News at 10, but we will get new computer model runs before that, and I will be posting that information on all of my social media accounts, so you can find it there, and I'll share it on WWL as well. If you have any questions, please email me, message me, however you need to contact me, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, all of those things. I've been trying to keep up with viewers as much as I possibly can. I apologize if I don't get to everyone, but there's a lot going on, and I, too, am trying to get my family ready for the next couple of days. I'm Chief Meteorologist Chris Franklin in the Weather Expert Forecast Center.